Hello everyone. I have heard your complaints. I know your feedback. I know what you all want. Modern Elder Scrolls games suck. They are too by the books, too mainstream, and I hate the mainstream. I would rather drown in unknown waters than follow the current everyone else is following. And don't get me started on the plot of modern test games. Okay, riddle me this. If this is a dragon, why isn't this a Dragoff? I want to go back to a simpler time, when this game's story was at its absolute peak. Time machine, hit that dab. Oh no. Today we're talking about the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, or at least that was the initial idea behind this video, but a number of factors, one of whom may or may not be the fact that this game is suboptimal in many ways, led me to reduce the screen time of Redguard and focus on other, more pressing matters. Sometimes, the real Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard was the mistakes we made along the way, but don't take these words from me. This game nearly bankrupted Bethesda.
Why do you think that game was a flop? One of the few you
Not a dark question.
Yeah.
It was. Well, a lot of reasons. Game that I love and really got us going on a handcrafted world. So we're coming off of Daggerfall. Morrowind is sort of in design. And then, part of our development teams broke up to do different things. The game that did Battlespire and Redguard was my game. But it's very much, I think, plays like it would have had a much better home on, say, PlayStation or Xbox. And it was I think it's one of the last like DOS games in a Windows world. So I think it missed kind of a technology window as well as ultimately not what people wanted from us.
So instead of making an Elder Scrolls Redguard retrospective, I choose to instead talk about Redguard as a game and also focus on the context behind it, the themes that introduced it to the franchise, and how these themes were later expanded upon. If you think that ESO is the black sheep of the Elder Scrolls franchise, then oh boy, you clearly haven't seen this beauty yet. Let me tell you about the struggles I faced just trying to boot up this game. First, I downloaded the game from Steam. Mistake number 1. Then I booted up the game expecting it to run perfectly without an emulator. Mistake number 2. And then I kept booting it back up every time it crashed, which was my third mistake, as every time the game crashes, it essentially works as a witchcraft omen telling you that you should probably stop. Then, about more than halfway through the game, it broke for good, and I was met with the worst death any gamer could ever ask for, the eternal, unending loading screen. Hey, look at me. Yes, make eye contact. Yes, come closer. Come closer now. This game is more unstable than me role-playing as the Black Owl. Even when I switched to the GOG version, which has seen some optimization for modern systems, it still runs at maximum 20 FPS if it's feeling generous on any given day. And although it might seem more stable, at any given time, it too can also go Lamau XT and just crash. I give a lot of leeway to any game I play, and I have never said this in a video so far, but do not play this game. Take this analysis or any other review on the internet and run with it, and I will explain later in more detail why that is. But you might be asking this question. Okay, voice from the abyss of the internet, why did you make this video then? Well, that is a good question, voices in my head representing my viewer base. Redguard to me always felt like a transition point. This is the first game in which Michael Kirkbride, OG of the channel at this point, was the lead writer. In fact, the lead writers for this game are him and Todd Howard. You can already tell that the story behind this game is gonna be an absolute trip, but that is not all. See, I have noticed a change in the atmosphere of the franchise from this point onward. When I look at trailers of Tess Arena and Daggerfall, I noticed that the franchise was completely different in aesthetic back then. You might notice that these games open with a book opening, as if to say that these games are more akin to a fairy tale. Even in this game, certain things you will notice aren't quite there yet. Magic is a big one. We're still at the level where magic has to happen after saying a bunch of silly words, told by even sillier looking people. Magic up until this point rings less Elder Scrolls and more like Mystery of the Druids.
Well, Jojo take care of this, no problem. Tain somoni ushmatkal.
What are you talking about?
Another big one is races. The races in this game are looking rough. It's the races you know and love, alright, but they haven't been defined like they would in later installments. So Argonians are always half naked, Khajiit can mostly speak their own native language, even if they are quite literally on the other side of the continent, and orcs don't exist apparently.
Sridwadinja, epakoja, srik, pur srafra kadoaliter beko.
We haven't spoken in 10 years. There was trouble.
A lot of other ideas are still in their infancy, like this is the first time we get to see Dwemer ruins, as the Dwemer ruins we know. There have always been references to them, but nothing quite like this. And finally, some concepts here will never again be explored in any other game, like notably, Yokuda. Out of all the forgotten continents that exist outside Tamriel, Yokuda has always been my favorite. It is the one that we know the most about, it still partly exists in some way, but if you look into it, it is just as mysterious as some other lost lands, like Atmora or Altmeris. So journey with me in this absolute monstrosity of a game as we talk about the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, and maybe the Elder Scrolls Online later, and try to answer the real questions. Has there ever been a functional Elder Scrolls game? I mean, what happened to Yokuda? Spoiler warning.
It is late in the Second Era, a time of war, as the empire of Tiber Septim sweeps through the kingdoms of Tamriel in a glorious bid for conquest. Septim is opposed on all sides, but never more fiercely than by Hammerfell, the ancestral home of the Redguards. The High King of Hammerfell, Thasard II, resists the imperial invasions even as he sees other kingdoms crumble, until at last, without warning and surprisingly devoid of court treachery, death takes its full measure. With its High King dead, Hammerfell is crippled, plunging into a bloody civil war between the crowns, fighting for their homeland's continued sovereignty, and the forebears, who have finally accepted the Emperor's rule. The crowns, led by the heir to Thasard, Prince Ator, are continually victorious, spilling the blood of the forebears across Hammerfell's sands. From his seat of power in the port city of Stros Makai, Prince Ator slowly reunites his father's unraveled kingdom. Feeling their impending defeat, the forebears sign a pact with the Emperor, allowing him to bring his armies in, crush the crowns, and rule Hammerfell as his own. Tiber Septim's armies prove too much for the proud Redguard crowns. Tiber Septim sends his best commander, Lord Richten, to Stros Makai to close the grip on Prince Ator and the crowns. The prince rallies his forces for one last stand. Knowing that Hammerfell's sovereignty is at stake, the crown forces match the might of the Empire, meeting them in the harbor of Stros Makai for the final battle. The fighting is fierce. Lord Richten, having seen the prince's victories at sea before, decides to bring his last resource to the fore. The dragon, Nathalilagus, proud jewel of the Imperial crown. Ator commands his archers to ready their weapons, but is struck down himself by Richten's assassin, felled by an arrow whose poison spreads too fast. Ator's wizard attempts to save the prince, but the dragon ends his magic and the crown's hope for victory in a single fiery breath. Having conquered the crowns, the Emperor's forces claim rule over all of Hammerfell. Imperial garrisons are stationed at every city, and Richten himself is named provisional governor of Stros Makai. Months pass. The Redguards of Hammerfell, both crown and forebear, learn to live under the new imperial rule, and Tiber Septim extends his reach into the rest of Tamriel. It is only through fate that any of this will come to concern our hero, Cyrus, a Redguard who long ago left Hammerfell to wander the borderlands of the Empire.
Okay, a lot to be said about this intro. First of all, the Kotho channel bears no responsibility for audio issues, technical difficulties, frame rate drops, and lag presented in this video game, which was made more than 2 decades ago, and absolutely not made for modern software. Okay, now comments about the video itself. The main reason why everything in the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard is happening is because of Tiber Septim. He is everywhere, and although he himself never makes an appearance, and as a matter of fact, there is only ever one picture of him in this game, everything is happening because of his expansion. I'm gonna talk freely about Tiber Septim, because I assume that most people know how his story goes at this point. This game takes place before the Battle of Elnor, and before the powering of the New Medium by Hjalti, Wolfhearth, and Zaranarctus. Time and time again throughout this game, the Imperials are constantly seen searching around Dwemer structures for anything that could help them with a secret project of theirs. I want to also mention something unique that this game did. Redguard is the first test game in which the Empire is flat out the bad guys, or at least the antagonistic force. In Arena, we're fighting for the Emperor. In Daggerfall, we're acting on the behalf of the Emperor. And even in Battlespire, our actions benefit the Empire more than anything else. But here the Empire basically assumes the role of an opportunistic conqueror. The Imperial Guards don't like us, the governor of Stros-Makai is by all definitions a tyrant, and the only real claim to power the Empire has in this region is of course power. Many of you might be puzzled by the dragon being here and everyone only being mildly bewildered by it. First of all, remember that at this time, it was believed that Cyrodiil was full of dragons, but that idea didn't pan out. So instead we have this specific dragon, who also makes an appearance in ESO, although it looks 100 times better there. So presumably this dragon wandered about or slept until the arrival of Tiber Septim, which takes place only shortly after ESO, and then he decided to join him in his conquest. So we're presented with this scene. The Redguards are split between the Empire sympathizing forebearers and the Crowns who are loyal to the old dynasty of Hammerfell, while the Empire has complete control of Hammerfell, and Tiber Septim is keen to spread his influence all over the continent in any way possible, and on the way, learn as many things about the Dwemer as possible. And it is in this environment that our protagonist, Cyrus, makes his way to Hammerfell to find his sister who disappeared.
I hope this letter finds your hands, friend. My latest travels have brought me to Stros-Makai, and no one here has seen your sister for 3 months. I fear the worst. I feel obligated to stay for a few weeks. I'll be at the Dragon Tail Inn should you return. Tobias.
I'm gonna talk about Cyrus later, but for now, all you have to know is the circumstances under which he killed his sister's husband. When this game came out, they also released a comic with it. It was the kind of comic you would find at like a rundown corner shop, and it explains this dynamic between Cyrus and his sister a bit better. It shows Cyrus in different regions of the world doing mercenary work until it cuts to the past, at the time he killed his sister's husband in a drunken duel. Her husband was an actor at the time of the Forebearers vs Crown rivalry, and they made a play trying to remind both sides that they are on the same team after all. The play was a success, and in a party after the performance, both sides were represented in equal numbers. But Izara's husband, being a prominent Forebearer, did not like that, and he started acting very violently. And after he slapped Izara, Cyrus killed him. Bit of a side run just to give you some context into the setting this game takes place in. You will see that, no matter what, Cyrus is always looking for Izara in this game. The reason why he came here, and the reason why he asks every NPC regardless of affiliation or whereabouts where his sister is because he feels guilt about this incident. So we begin with a quick ship fight, in which we get the first taste of the combat in Redguard. Terrible. The combat in Redguard is terrible. The hitboxes don't work. The camera angles make everything look clunky, and 2 playthroughs in, I still don't know how to block. But I don't have to, because right here, right now, I'm gonna make you all experts in Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard combat. So you want the camera leaning at the enemy at approximately 45 degrees. Then you wanna jump and hit exactly as Cyrus lands. This confirms a hit every time and your opponent cannot hit back. This is hereby all the commentary needed for the combat in this game. Except for boss fights, which are a completely different kind of worms. So we land on Stros-Makai and make our way to the inn there, where we meet our old captain, Tobias. He reaffirms what he wrote in the letter to us, and then he gives us a bunch of leads. So, to spare you the dialogue, he and the Argonian bartender tell us Izara was an outspoken hater of the Empire, a priest in the Temple of Arche is missing, and the one priest that's left seems to be hiding something. Izara went missing well after the battle in which the prince died. The Imperial Governor, Rickton, is absolutely ruthless and possibly works against the commands of Tiber Septim. And finally, a new underground organization has surfaced called the Restless League, who are supposedly fighting against the Empire's influence in Stros-Makai. However, their reputation is mixed. On one hand, some people like them as freedom fighters, and on the other hand, some people view them as thieving cutthroats and pirates. They also exchange pleasantries and throw out some other references which I will get to later, but in the end Tobias tells us that he won't be the island for long, and that we should do the same. Just find Izara and leave. Before we go on, I want to mention one last thing about this encounter. TES Adventures Redguard takes place before TES Morrowind, but at the time of its release, the location of the next big Elder Scrolls title was not yet known. So here is this dialogue.
I've not returned to Morrowind since then.
Who'd want to? All that ash and fire. Those dark elves can keep their curse.
Don't forget the bugs.
To you and me, this is just foreshadowing dialogue, but I can't help but imagine some people after this game's release are like an early internet forum going, bro, Elder Scrolls 3 location Morrowind confirmed. This is definitely it, dude. From here the game opens up and we can go wherever, but I will present things in what I view as a efficient sequence of events to get us through this game. So, right near the port, there is a job contractor willing to give us a job, most likely because no one else was willing to take it, and that job is to go to an abandoned island inhabited by one lonely wizard, pick up an amulet from him, and give it to the governor. We accept the quest and make our way to the island. There are a bunch of broken bridges we have to jump over, and we have to give 2 coins to a skeleton to sell us across the sea, and this is the island. So it seems like the contractor wasn't completely honest with us. As a matter of fact, the wizard is a necromancer. But not just any necromancer, but a sloth.
Cyrus, this one is Nagasta, the necromancer of Strosmakai.
Pause. Sloths are one of the most mysterious and cryptic races of this franchise. They are from the island of Thras, their exact origins is however unknown, and they are powerful users of dark magics like necromancy, plague magic, and dealings with the Daedra. As much as I like them, and as much as I am glad that Redguard introduced them, I must say, Nagasta is the worst sloth we ever got. Compared to all the other ones, he's pathetically weak. And I attribute this mainly to this being the first time a sloth was introduced, so they didn't know what they wanted to do with them yet. But just to give you a clear example of an instance where the later games did it better, this is Nagasta.
You so fucking precious when you smile.
He's a powerful necromancer who, as we will learn while we talk to him here, has inhabited this island right next to Strosmakai to place a soul net over Strosmakai to collect the souls of the people dying there, which given the rivalries, wars, and crimes committed in the island, means that he's eating good. This, however, doesn't change the fact that he's a hunchback, midget-looking creature who can, in a combat scenario, at most throw lightning. Now let's compare this to a single sloth present in the Elder Scrolls Online. One of the most powerful military orders in the Somerset Isle are the Welkinar Griffon Knights. They are powerful mage knights of the Somerset Isle, and they ride griffins into battle. They are probably the second strongest faction in the island, second only to the Sigic Order. A single sloth named Zamaja was able to possess all of them and turn them into her servants, take full control of them and their base, as well as the city of Cloudrest, possess the griffins along the way because why not, and use the land to spawn even more portals, out of which came even more shadow creatures. When she dies, you have to kill her again in her shadow form because she's an OP necromancer whose soul is not even bound to her body. Compared to this, Nagasta is a joke. Still, he gives us the amulet we need to give to the governor, and he also tells us that he has not captured our sister's soul in his soul net, and in fact, he doesn't know where she is, which only one of those statements is correct. The other one is a lie. But for now, we give the amulet to Rickton, and on the way, we decide to question him about our sister. He does not take too kindly to this, Cyrus does not take too kindly to him not taking it too kindly to this, and so we're thrown into a prison cell, with a guy that has a mysterious key, which we can use to contact the Restless League, whom the governor just told us that they were in fact affiliated with our sister. Hey everyone, do you know the plot device used by writers who can come up with good plots? Coincidence. Alas, the prisoner does not have enough time to tell us how to contact the League. He's too busy dying, but before he does, he tells us to go to the lighthouse in the nearby town. So we escape our prison cell because, and I am not joking with you, key beats brick, and we make it to the catacombs above the dungeons. I wanna quickly give another tangent. I don't view this video as a review, not because it does not analyze the game, but because A, I want to focus more on the themes of Redguard and less about the game as a whole, and B, I don't think it's fair to criticize Redguard with modern gaming perspectives. Many things that Redguard does are bad, but they were done this way in a time where modern game design did not exist. Example, Half-Life came out at the exact same year as Redguard, and it can be argued that the original Half-Life was a revelation on the department of game design. The core motif of Half-Life goes: fighting area, puzzle solving, explanation about whatever is happening, and repeat. This way, the combat stays fresh because the player doesn't have to grind through it in endless combat sequences, the puzzles don't overstay their welcome and cause frustration, and the explanation feels rewarding. In Redguard, the motif is puzzle, 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 combat, 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 cutscene, puzzle, combat. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the solutions for many puzzles I just googled, there were genuinely times where after completing a puzzle, I was rewarded with another puzzle, to the point that at times I didn't even feel the need to interact with a puzzle after I had just solved another. I just instantly wanted to Google the solution, and if it wasn't for the combat trick I showed earlier, I wouldn't have the stomach to finish this game. Not that I ever did, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. And don't even get me started on the content of those puzzles. Again, using Half-Life, who came at the exact same time as an example, when you enter a puzzle area in that game, there is always a hint telling you what to do. None of that in Redguard. You are expected to come up with the most ludicrous solutions to problems you didn't even know you had to progress, which boils down to trial and error. And this is just about the puzzles. Platforming sections? Oh, let me tell you something about the platforming sections. Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate platforming ever since I began playing Redguard. There are 387.44 million neurons of brain cells that fill my brain. If the word hate was engraved on each and every single nanoangstrom of my neurons, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for the platforming in Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard at any micro instance. for I hate the platforming in this game. The camera angles don't work, jumping feels awkward, and Sarah sometimes just doesn't feel like jumping, grappling, or even living. Say what you want about Redguard architecture, but from playing this game I have understood that lava on the floor and ropes for stairs are a staple, and the ropes are terrible. Behold, gameplay. Everything I am saying in this section is of course, as I said, due to the game's age, and there is a single good puzzle in this game, which is maybe a good thing. I intended it to make it sound like it was a good thing, but now that I'm saying it out loud, a single good puzzle in a 15-hour game sounds kinda bad. Anyway, we get out of the catacombs by finding a bunch of runes and placing them in the right place on a wheel. After, of course, we get our stuff back by expertly running past some guards, because sneaking is apparently not a thing in this game, and when we escape the catacombs, we get this cutscene.
Governor, I have news of the Redguard. Which bloody Redguard? The one recently put into the catacombs, sir. The one named Cyrus. He has escaped. What? He is nowhere to be found, sir. We are combing the streets for him now. But escape is impossible from the catacombs, the traps and so forth, right, Dram? I hear you.
Thank you, guardsman. Carry on, and keep me posted.
I underestimated the Redguard. Bah! Overestimated the dungeons of our enemies, more likely. Never trust another man's death traps. Double the guard immediately, and increase the patrols in town and along the waterfront. The Redguard must not find his sister.
From here on out, the guards will automatically attack us on sight and will follow us wherever we go. You can leave Strosmakai and go somewhere else completely, and like 20 minutes later you'll see the guards coming after you out of nowhere. From here on out, there isn't really a particular line of events, and each and every single one of the events that I will mention can happen almost independently of one another, but they all have to be completed in order to initiate the finale of the game. So if you remember, we were brought here by a captain who seems like a really lovely guy, but he isn't, and he betrays us for money and tries to get us arrested by the Imperials, so we kill him.
You're wanted by the Imperials, you know. Please, come below deck where we can talk in privacy.
We then go to the Temple of Arche, where we can talk to the priest about the priest that disappeared.
When did you last see Kithral?
I sent him to the park for fresh mandrake root, and that is probably where Richton's men were waiting. Kithral was against the Imperial expansion from the start, though I reminded him that Arche frowns on more secular interests. This warning Kithral obviously did not take to heart.
When we go to the garden, we notice a waterfall, and if we look closely, behind said waterfall, there seems to be an opening. So remember during the opening cinematic where it said that during the battle between Crowns and Imperials, Prince Ator's wizard tried to save the prince? Well, that wizard was actually the Archmage of Strosmakai's Mage Guild branch, Archmage Voa. He died during the battle with the dragon, and he was buried secretly without the Imperials knowing about it, under the city, right here, in this goblin cave. For some reason we don't know yet, Kithral and Izara wanted the Ring of the Mage to restore the prince, though why and how we don't know.
The Journal of Brother Kithral, wherein he describes a search for Archmage Voa's ring in the caverns below Strosmakai. This last part reveals much.
I can taste the poison in my mouth. A yellow fog in the chest that clogs the vital passage. Oh, the gash in my side weeps fast. Which will kill me first? Wound or toxin? Damn her impatience. And damn my pride to think I might find the ring here in this nefarious darkness on my own. But she missed the rendezvous, and I fear we are running out of time. With the Archmage's ring, we are one step closer to restoring the crowns to power. I am sure his body is here. Some trick of undercurrent in the wake of the battle. The spider's milk is deep. Izara, I pray nothing has happened to you. I hear the goblins behind the door. Ubula, Ubula, Ubula. They come for me. I have failed you, my love, and the ring is nowhere near. You must hurry. The League is closing in. The Empire is closing in. The darkness is close.
So we traverse through this cave. I am not gonna say if the process was fun or not because I have already made my opinion on that clear. And we find the Archmage's body, guarded by an ogre. The only way to kill the ogre is by having it hit a column which collapses the roof and instantly kills it. And after we kill it, we can reclaim the Archmage's ring, which we have to take back to the Priest of Arche to hear his opinion about all this.
Cyrus, I now count you as a friend. Kithral's fate is revealed, and I shall bring you into my confidence.
Go on.
The body of Prince Hator is here, at the temple.
It is?
Yes, it's the only safe place for it. We can't quite bury it.
Why?
There is a spell of stasis upon it, to preserve it and stave off its decay. Archmage Voa enchanted it thus, just after the prince's death.
Archmage Voa is mentioned in the journal, and his magical ring, which both Kithril and my sister were looking for.
Voa's ring was used to enchant the prince's body.
So they would have used it?
To dispel the body's stasis field.
Why would they do that? That would only serve to send the body along to rot.
Yes, you're right. It doesn't quite make sense, does it? It is Redguard custom to preserve their great leaders in stasis so that they might be looked upon ever after in their prime. To break the stasis would be treason, or hubris even.
Now, there's something we're not getting yet. Both Azara and Kithril were crowns. Whatever they had planned for the prince would only have been for his benefit.
I am sure you are right.
Obviously, this is supposed to be a bombshell, and because we have the ring, we also get this bit of dialogue with him.
I have Archmage Voa's ring, Brother Niddle.
Ah, this will break the stasis field.
Can you use it?
No, I can't, Cyrus. You need a mage for this, not a priest. The magics are unalike in practice.
So now we need to find a mage, and I kid you not, the simple sentence, find a mage, becomes a catalyst for the most action-adventure game sequence of events anyone could possibly come up with. So with adventure games, and especially with the other ones, things often boil down to find something for someone to give it to someone else, to give something for something else, so you can give someone something else, so they can give you any information you need about someone else, in order for that someone else to tell the player something they need to hear, in order to be able to progress the main story. But that someone refuses to tell us what we need to hear, unless we go through this entire crusade and get what they want. So if at some point throughout the following section of the video you wonder to yourself, hold up, why are we doing all this? Here is your reason. So to start our journey within a journey, we have to give a donation to the local snake charmer who informs us about the following. There used to be a family of Yokudans living in the city, but after the imperial occupation, they killed a boy called Hale and ran the rest of the family off the city. They are now camped alone in the edge of the island near Hale's grave, where his mother is trying to prevent his soul from getting caught in Nagasta's soul web by performing an ancient Yokudan ritual to it and keep it in stasis to hopefully help it pass in the afterlife. However, no one is willing to help them because Yokudans were always disliked by the rest of the Redguards in Hammerfell. Now, by saying this statement, I understand that I created two camps of people. Camp number one are people who don't know anything about this part of the lore, and so they go, fair. And camp number two are people who are utterly confused out of their minds right now, or thinking that this is one of the pieces of Redguard lore that was later retconned. I will not explain this information given to us by the snake charmer just yet, because we are only at the beginning of the outlandishness, but I will say that personally, I think that nothing that the snake charmer has said has ever been retconned. So we visit the camp of Yokudans, where we can find Hale's mother and brother, whom we can ask a few questions. So the issue here is that for the mother to complete the ritual, she has to align the stones of the circle with the star sign of her son, who was born under the serpent, but the serpent always changes positions, so she doesn't know where it is, and they need someone to find it for them. Thankfully for them, we are someone, and also thankfully for us, there is a Domen observatory outside Strosmakai that is run by a senior elf called Erasmo. Technically, Erasmo is here on behalf of the Imperials who need Dwemer technology for reasons, but he says that he will let us use it if we can fix it. It's missing an important gear which can be found in the nearby Dwemer dungeon.
You say this place is Dwarven?
Flash! That's what Rasmus did! Them dwarves do a thing or two, bring the second ring to the ruins, and me here to fix them! Flash, flash, flash! Contraption!
Also, the whole flash thing he says is actually the secret password to contact the Restless League, but I'm getting ahead of myself. For now, it's important to look at what's ahead of us. Behind him, we can see a bunch of constellations, but they are represented by Dwemer symbols, which make things look a bit off. In particular, there is no steed. Instead, we have why are you here? No, you get back in the love letter right now. At least that was my first thought, and it's not wrong, but there is more meat to this theory than just it stands for Lorcan. No, I mean literally, meat is involved. Did you know that elven races view horses as a delicacy and mostly food? Don't believe me? Go to the Altmeri embassy right now in Skyrim. Go right now and tell me what you see on the table. If this is the reason why you don't have eyes now, then you should have just believed me. Also, apparently the orcs like them with onions. So having a steed depicted here isn't exactly in line with them. I don't exactly think it represents Lorcan. More so, it represents the ideals of Lorcan, which are the ideals of showing us, and or himself, how to reach Amaranth. There is some more evidence to support this in the Dwemer ruins, along with the gear we need, so let's head there right now. The Dwemer ruins are the worst section of this game. There, I said it. Pretty much every problem I told you about this game, and a few I haven't, are cracked up to 11 there. To access them, you have to go to the librarian of the city, buy a book on Dwemer technology, use it on the entrance, and apparently off-camera Cyrus is also an amateur Dwemer text translator who can just read the language, because he gets it right, and the door opens. I'm glad to see he has a side hustle. Then it's puzzle, two dudes, puzzle, and then this. I kid you not. This is the worst puzzle in the entire history of gaming. It is a scarab which you have to fix by stepping on it just so it can open its fangs and close them exactly in a way which makes them pull down a rope which opens the door to progress when rotated 90 degrees. Without looking at a tutorial or anything on the internet to figure this out, the only way I can imagine that you can feasibly understand that this is what you're supposed to do is by understanding that the scarab represents Lorcan and he's opening the door for you to progress on your journey, which again isn't very well explained at this point. So for the people back in the day, it was just trial and error. While I'm at it, I just want to mention that while I was playing this puzzle, I kept feeling so bad for people who played this game on release without any internet walkthroughs or instruction pages. The game does come with a manual, but it is beyond useless. And thus, we make it to the last chamber where we have to fight a boss fight against a Dwemer Colossal. Behold, boss fighting in the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard. Magnificent. We get the gear and bring it back to Erasmo. And for our ingenuity, we get rewarded with another puzzle. After that, we're allowed to use the telescope, where we find out that the serpent is actually looking at the Lord. If that sentence sounds fishy to you, it's because it is. So we go back to the Yokudan camp and place the stones where the serpent is located, which causes the mother of the Yokudan that was killed to carry his soul in the afterlife, and allows her to complete the ritual. She's now willing to become the mage we need in order to complete the ritual and give rise to the prince once again. But to perform the ritual, we also need the princess soul gem. But before we can go on the journey for the princess soul gem, I want to talk a little bit about Yokudans. Not Yokuda yet. That will have to once again be a different kind of worms, but Yokudans. Everything here has been highly cryptic, almost to the point that you would be forgiven to dismiss it as nonsense written during an older game. But I think that everything here fits in line with contemporary lore, and if anything, it just makes it better. The mere mention of people coming from Yokuda more than 3,000 years after it sank might seem ludicrous to you. But even if they aren't from Yokuda, and I do think they are, Yokudan customs and references to the lost homeland of the Redguards exist all over this game, starting with the essentials. Religion. Yokudan religion has a lot in common with other Tamrielic religions, in terms of deities and worship that is. But here, because the religion developed outside Tamriel and was brought to the continent, the names can be very different, and perceptions of people towards certain deities is also very different. And no conversation about Yokudan religion can take place without knowledge of Sadagal, the destroyer of circles. It is he who, in a way, gave birth to all the other divines of the Yokudan pantheon, as according to the Yokudan pantheon, only spirits that survive the end of one world can become divines in the next world. Maybe it's because I'm fresh off the 7 fights of Aldudaga, but this god to me just yells Alduin. How Sadagal came to be is even more interesting. So the first thing that existed in the void before time was Sadak, the first serpent. Within the world existed nothing but him, but within him came Akel, the hungry stomach who made Sadak so hungry that he began eating himself, which eventually led to Sadak biting his own heart and dying. But before Akel died with him, he refused to stop forever, so he shed the first serpent skin, creating Sadagal. To me, this sounds a lot like Oriol and Sithis, this. A lot of people say that all these different deities with the same personalities, characteristics, and abilities are all different, but in my opinion, they don't seem to be, at least not entirely. Sadagal is still just Alduin from the Yokudan perspective. It's just that their perspective is incredibly skewed compared to other pantheons. See, so far, everything, although slightly altered, makes sense theme-wise. The dynamic between Akhel and Sarak is very similar to that of Sithis and Anuiel, which leads us to what I believe is the biggest deviation the Yokudans make compared to other pantheons. So follow me here. In the Yokudan mythos exists the idea of the walkabout, which is the process of escaping the hunger of Sadagal and making it to the next circle. The first spirit to succeed in this endeavor was Ruptka, who is always referred to as Tall Papa, and he is the chief deity of the pantheon. It is described that he is the one who placed the stars in the sky so that the other spirits can find their way to the next circle, and thus it is he who created the walkabout. But with the passage of every cycle, this process kept getting more and more difficult, which is why he created a helper to assist him with this process. He made a helper made out of the dead remnants of previous cycles, and he called him Sep. I don't think Tall Papa stands for any of the Aedra we know about. You could argue that he kinda resembles Magnus in a way, but personally I think that he more so represents the idea of achieving Amaranth. Sep, however, is just flat out Lorcan. He was driven crazy by the hunger of Sadagal, and he convinced some other spirits to help him create an easier way to the walkabouts beneath the creation of Tolpapa, which is the world of Nirn. The spirits he convinced to help them then got trapped there, and Tolpapa punished him because of it. But his desire to escape Sadagal's hunger still lingers, and this is why the Yokudans are unlike any race of humans. They are the only human race to view Sep negatively. He is described as a self-serving traitor who made this world in a fit of paranoia to save himself, and he also tries to prevent mortals from entering the far shores, who by the way are the Redguard afterlife. Apparently after one point it became so easy for some spirits to escape the cycles that after one point they just made a space in Aetherius to chillax in between cycles. That place is known as the far shores. Now I'll talk about some of the lesser deities, and on the way we will also talk about some of the Yokudan factions. Tawaka is the god of the souls. Before Tolpapa created the walkabouts, he was the god of the cosmos, but with the advent of the walkabout, he became the caretaker of souls, guiding them to the far shores after their passing. Basically, cosmic arche. Leki. She's one of the children of Tolpapa, and she's the goddess of swordsmanship. In Yokudan society, the governing class is referred to as the Nototambu. During the Merithic era, the Yokudans were fighting against a now extinct faction of elves called the Sinistral Elves. The Sinistral Elves are a mysterious faction of elves that we know almost nothing about, except the following. They were once the ancient enemies of the Yokudans and they ruled over their continent. They were at war with the Yokudans for the longest time, and after the Nototambu fought between themselves about who's gonna lead the final charge against the Sinistral Elves, Leki intervened and introduced the art of soul singing, and with it, the Yokudans wiped out the Sinistral Elves. They also used another new weapon, the Orichalk, brought to them by another deity, Diagna. Diagna was essential in defeating the Sinistral Elves. Not only did he bring the humans of Yokuda new weapons, he was confirmed to be an actual human that fought beside them until he gained permanence. He was also an avatar of something called the Huding. The Huding isn't so much a god as much as it is a spirit that carries an idea with it, and the idea is perseverance. He only materializes in times of crisis for the Redguards, such is the case with Diagna. As of the time of me making this video, there have been two other avatars of the Huding, Frandar Hunting and another one which you might be able to tell by now. And we'll get to both of these avatars in different sections because there's a lot going on with them. Okay, minor deity rundown, go. Tava is the goddess of the wind. She led the Yokudans to Tamriel after the continent went bye-bye. She's very much like Kinnereth. Zed is the god of agriculture. Mora is the fertility goddess and the main wife of Tolpapa. He has several. And finally Onsi is the warrior god of the Rakara. What is the Rakara? Rakara translates from Yokuda to warrior wave. It was the order of the first warriors who always dove first into battle. They fought as the first line of war against the Sinistral Elves, and they were also the first wave to settle into Tamriel. We will get to the sinking of Yokuda and what happened to the Sword Singers and Frandar Hunting, but for now, I have to talk about a game. Now, where did we leave off? Oh yeah, we need the Princess Soul Gem. We now have to gain access to a place called the Smuggler's Den, because it is connected with the League, which is connected to a sister, who somehow is connected with the Princess Soul. Yeah, that's the logic we're going with. So we overhear a few conversations and give a guy a logger in exchange for the secret password to the den. Spoon.
Spoon.
There, we learn that Izara is in fact not there either. But after some persuasion, and by persuasion I mean saying please, please, pretty please, we get the insignia of the Restless League. Okay, so now that we have the key to the lighthouse, the insignia, and the password Erasmo told us about, and a torch, which we can get from wherever, we go to the lighthouse, light up the house, and do the thing Erasmo told us. And then a ship comes out and gives us this dialogue.
I'm not sure why I am even talking to you. How do I even know you are who you say you are? I'm going to need some proof.
We give this woman the League's insignia and she takes us to their hideout. Behold, the Restless League's hideout. I can never get more than 20 frames per second here. We now find the leader of the Restless League, a man named Basil, who gives us the key to our sister's old room, where we find her journal, which opened with our blood, which we just so happen to have a sample of, since prior to all this, a member of the Restless League fought us, and Basil gave us a piece of cloth to wipe our blood with. Said piece of cloth can now conveniently be used to open Izara's journal. Hey, do you know the technique writers use when they can advance the plot in any good way? Dumb luck. Yes.
First C26, Common Era, 864. This is my last entry. As I'm taking leave of this maddening torpor, the time to act is at hand. Basil and the rest of his lazy bulls are content to mourn our prince and hide in shadows, even while we have the very thing the governor fears most. For months my love has lain in amber, while the Empire firms its hold. Hammerfell will be lost forever if Prince Ator is not restored. I'm decided. If the League can't shake its slumber, then I will steal the soul gem as they sleep. By morning, I'll be in Stras Makai, where there are others who might give me the help I need. Cyrus, the gypsy woman told me you would come to Stras Makai. I laughed in her face, of course, but I leave this warning if only for respect of one's elders. If the bloodlock is opened, then I know it is you, and I ask you to heed the next. Leave me my dilemma, and go back to whatever road you love best these days. You've had ample practice.
Okay guys, this channel has a lot of revelations in it, and I am just as shocked as you are. We'll get through this together. Gypsies are now confirmed in the Elder Scrolls franchise. The Balkan states have now disavowed this franchise. With this information, we go to the Mages Guild and press them about the nature of the soul gem.
Your sister came here with the soul gem. She was frantic and insisted on speaking to one of the upper cabal. She was worried about being followed and needed to restore Prince Ator as soon as possible.
She was going to bring back the prince?
What do you think the soul gem was for in the first place? A keepsake of her lost love? Look, Archmage Voa put Ator's soul into the gem to save him from the Empire. See? Somehow, the Restless League got their hands on it and were using it to rally supporters to win the kingdom back. Anyway, Izara got tired of waiting around for this attack to happen, so she swiped the gem and came here to get things done.
But
Since the Archmage was killed in the battle, there was no one left with enough power to restore the prince. Izara was terrified. Then one of our members, an acolyte named Jodo, decided he would try to help her and find another way to restore the prince.
did it work?
Yeah, Prince Ator's behind you right now making funny faces. No, it didn't work. Izara was here night and day doing research, with Jodo poring over scrolls and spell books to find some clue that would help them. But the Empire must have caught on. A dark elf came to talk to Jaganvir one day, and the next thing you know, Jodo is thrown into the city jail for treason against the Empire.
What happened to Izara?
I don't know if she got away or she was caught along with Jodo or what. He's the only one who could tell you that, and he's rotting away in a cell.
Not for long.
You're crazy if you think you're gonna break into the city jail. The Empire has...
Silence!
Archmage Jaganvir, I was only...
Would you have the Empire put the whole of the guild in chains? Speaking of this as strictly forbidden.
Back off, Sparkly. I was just leaving. I have everything I wanted to know.
You're not leaving until I'm sure you'll never speak a word of what you've learned. And I have a perfect and most satisfying means of ensuring your discretion.
Now we play as a gremlin, a creature that was never seen in an Elder Scrolls game before, and hopefully never will again. And for good reason. Look at it. Look. Look!
Look! What the fuck is this?
It looks like something I would have drawn as a child and then give it to my parents to put it on the fridge for a week before going, okay, show's over, throw it in the bin. As this creature, we have to break into the prison, talk to Johto, solve a really stupid puzzle that makes no sense, and then he gives us this information.
Johto thinks Necromancer has Izara.
How could that be?
Izara asked Johto for help to use his magic to restore Prince Ator from Soul Gem. Johto could not, and Johto knows no other at Guild can help. Johto knows only one sorcerer can do this thing. Nagasta, powerful necromancer.
So you sent her there?
No. Johto not stupid. Johto warned sister, no trust dark warn Nagasta. Powerful, yes, is Nagasta, but wicked. Soul stealer, old and evil.
But Izara would not listen?
No, she is your sister, you know, and she loves the prince, so she must try. So Johto tells her. Johto knows a protection against wicked Nagasta.
The precaution didn't work?
No, poor Izara. No patience. Johto tells her flask of Lilandril, old elven magic, here on this island. But where? Flask is lost many years. So we search and search, but few clues. So slow. Izara can't wait. We find one thing, one piece of map. I think it shows where to look, but just one piece.
So she abandoned any hopes of finding the flask and went to the necromancers anyway?
Yes, I think. But Johto keeps looking, and Johto finds other piece of map. But before Johto can show it, Izara is gone. Then Imperial, they find Johto and stick him here. But Johto still has map piece. He hides it from guards. Here, I show you. Take this, find flask, then go to Nagasta. Find Izara, there, I think.
You talk too much, cat.
Ah!
Johto!
Find Izara.
Do you all know the principle by which the bad guys kill every character other than the main character? Lazy writing. It's just lazy writing. Well, actually, he just wanted to keep us alive to show him the Restless League's hideout, which never comes up again. And as a matter of fact, I can think of 10 better ways on top of my head to find the League's hideout. And come to think about it, nothing we ever did hinted to this guy that we would meet the Restless League. So he essentially wasted good Imperial men and resources on a blind gamble. So we beat him up, he uses his ninjutsu, I guess, and we break out of the jail. Now we have to find the Flask of Lilandril, which is somewhere in Strosmakai. This process is extremely tedious, boring, and if I'm being honest, badly developed. So here it is. You see it? It's right here. And now we have to go back to Nagasta's island to finally, maybe, hopefully, perhaps find our sister. After another unexplainable puzzle, we find Izara in a zombie-like state. Apparently, Nagasta tricked her and trapped her soul, but because he had nothing to do with it, he lended it over to Claviger's vial, like a used car salesman, but for souls. Behold, a boss fight with a Slode, one of the most feared, deadly, and powerful creatures on the face of Nirn. We have to complete another puzzle here. Mom, help me, it doesn't stop. To open a portal to Claviger's Vial's Realm of Oblivion. The Field of Rice, the Field of Regrets. Claviger's Vial is done very poorly in this game. Have a look.
Wow, I'm so glad you could come!
Look at him! Why does he have a yo-yo? Also, don't look at Barbas. You might get blind. So we give Claviger's Vial the Flask of Lilandril to give us a chance to save our sister. Here we have the only good puzzle in the entire game. And Cyrus is so baffled by this that he wagers his soul on it.
2 doors. One leads to the loss of your soul. The other leads to the return of Izara's. 2 guardians. One always lies. One always tells the truth. You can ask one of them just one question. Just one. The game begins. Choose wisely!
Even if the odds of winning this seem to always be at 50%, the game will let you progress unless you pick the right question. And the only right question is, which door would the other person say it's correct? So to explain this a little, say I ask the one who is lying this question. He would always lie and say a different door than the one who always tells the truth. Similarly, if we ask the other guy the same question, he would always answer with the answer of the liar, since he always tells the truth, thus only leading to one door in both cases.
Not such a blockhead after all. But I don't think you've seen the last of me, Cyrus. I've got my eye on you.
And so finally, we get our sister soul back, and she immediately doesn't give a damn about us.
You are safe, Azara.
Is it you?
I'm afraid so.
Where's Nagasta? Is he dead? Where's the soldier?
Azara,
I have to get back to the League.
But...
What have I done?
Azara!
Are you coming or not?
Caught up already, have you?
Shut up. Azara.
Do you plan to stay this time?
Yes.
Because you could run again.
Yes.
It wasn't your war then.
No.
And it's not your war now.
No.
And if you expect anything more than that right now, you can go to hell.
That's just great, Izara.
Don't give me that. Even if we still had the soldier, we'd be in the same place. You'd still be hiding in this cave, and Rickton would still be in our prince's palace.
There's a difference between hiding from the Empire and biding our time.
We're losing time.
You lost the soul gem. What now, girl?
I know where it is.
Yeah, huh?
Rickton has the soul gem.
You've seen him with it?
I gave it to him.
How could...
I didn't know what it was. The necromancer had it fashioned into an amulet, a gift for the governor. He needed someone to deliver it. I did, thinking I could somehow get to you.
My heart just broke. Yours too? 1,000,000 pieces.
We'll just have to get it back.
We'll be killed as soon as we step onto the shore.
Cyrus is right.
What's the point of being condemned as rebels in arms if we never take up those arms against the Empire?
We?
I tell you, Basil, and hear me well. Whether you like it or not, I'm in this now until the end.
I'm not sending my men to Stros Makai. Soul Gem lost or no, Hammerfell needs us alive.
What good are you, Basil, if you do nothing? Are you afraid of shedding a little blood?
Here it comes.
You speak grandly of spending blood that is not your own, son. As for the League, we do what we can, even in hiding. We're pirates, man. The purest form of sedition. To thieves, snare, slit the throat unbeheld. The ever-resident thorns, keeping all sides of guard, alleviating every inertia with our own. Our raids force the Emperor to garrison Stros Makai and tie up ships and men here. And our piracy hits Rickton where it counts, in his gold purse. If he doesn't squeeze this province for the profits the Emperor demands, his head will roll.
Don't forget the dragon, Basil. Because that's the thing you really fear, isn't it? The Battle of Stros Makai hung in the balance until the governor called in his dragon, right?
Well, there's that too.
I'll take care of the dragon.
Big man.
Can I feel your muscle?
Rickton probably has the dragon guarding the soldier in the palace treasure vaults.
Where are they?
You can enter them through the catacombs, but you need the key.
Where'd you get this?
The prince and your sister were good friends, Cyrus. The treasure vaults were to be her jewelry chamber.
I've had enough of your chatter, Basil. I'm going to find the gem, and then I'll find somebody who'll bring the prince back. When that's done, should I tell him to expect your aid or not?
I expect you'll have just as much success as your sister had, Cyrus. You can hardly do any worse.
I'll go with you.
2 weeks still. Look, I've done well enough to this point. I can finish this. For you.
For Hammerfell.
Fine, for Hammerfell. When I have the soul gem and somebody that can break its magic, what should I do?
Send us the signal and we'll meet at the temple. Brother Niddle has the Tor's body hidden there.
Redguard! When you have the prince, you have his men.
I should help you.
You're too well known on the island. The Imperial...
I can handle them.
And you will, after the temple. I won't fail you. Not like last time.
Look, let's get this straight. You murdered my husband and ran away. On one day, you robbed me of the two people I loved and trusted most in the world. Hakan was not much of a husband, but you were not, and you are not fit to judge him. Nor am I fit to judge you. You're guilty of gods know how many crimes and cruelties, not the least of all what you've done to your own flesh and blood. But whatever harm you've done to me, I forgive you. You're my blood and younger brother, and I can do no less. But if you trifle with the affairs of the League, and with the fate of Hammerfell and her people, then run away like you did last time. I will find you. You are a charming, vain, self-absorbed child, never thinking of anyone but yourself and your own profit. But if you take up this thing, you will see it through to the end, or I will kill you.
I am going to find that soul gem, and I will get your prince back. Izara, I know what you think of me. I'm not proud of what I've been, but something is happening here, and I don't really know what I'm saying.
A rare moment of self-awareness in Tess Adventures Redguard? I think so. Now we have to get the soul gem for the prince, which is hidden in the treasury inside the catacombs. I'm not gonna bother anyone with the process of getting there, nothing happens. But when we do get there, we meet the dragon the Prince Ator tried to attack.
I am Tiber Septim's proud soldier, loyal vassal, a jewel of the crown.
Behold, a battle with the dragon in the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard.
Rethinking where are you? You are crafty. You are crafty.
I don't have to give a comment on this. This video isn't a review. I don't have to give a comment on this. This video isn't a review. I don't have to give a comment on this. So, with the soul gem, body, ring, and a powerful mage, we can now revive Prince Ator. So we call the League in the Temple of Arche and perform the ritual.
The soul gem. The ring.
What is it? Did it work?
I'm sorry, Cyrus.
What's wrong? What happened? What did you do wrong?
It didn't work.
What now, Redguard?
sword.
Oh, Tatene.
His soul is in the sword.
Mother?
How did this happen?
Atorno mangai sura.
She doesn't know. It was...
Yes! How it happened. It's over, Cyrus. We can't follow a sword. You failed us. We are through.
Is this how you will honor your prince, then? Cautious I've thought you, Basil, but never before a coward. We all have waited for the prince's return. Now that he has returned, you walk away. The form is different, true, but his spirit is here. And isn't his spirit the truest part of him? Did it occur that maybe he chose this shape and symbol as the sign of his intentions? Perhaps that soul in hated delay snared helpless in a jewel while his men hid and shirked their duties, his duty. Perhaps that soul honed itself to this and by no mistake comes to you now in no more fine and final form as this. A sword. You say you cannot follow a sword? Well, I say that you have strayed from your own too long. Why are you here but to fight? Your prince has shown you the manner of his purest metal, and metal itself. And this true, unerring razor's message is clear beyond words, for now's not the time for words, but for brave hands, bright swords, and blood. Aye, boys, it's about blood now, too long frozen in your veins. And you'd rather yourself be rigid than follow me. Well, if you won't, then shamefully know that your prince will. For his blood be solid too, but strained to steel and tempered in death. Arise alike as he, as swords as we are, crowns alike as he. The prince is dead. Long live the prince!
I know this is supposed to be a hype moment, but in my head I really wanted the pirates to hit Cyrus with a boo, this guy stinks. A lot of people, I feel, don't understand why the prince came back as a sword. So here's the deal, right? Tiber Septim cannot be beaten at this point. If the prince were to come back as himself, at most, at the very most, what would have happened is that he would have kicked the Imperials and killed the governor. Then, Tiber would come himself and do the thing he does when people challenge his authority. By coming back as a sword, he comes back as an idea picked up by Cyrus. The idea of perseverance, thus making Cyrus a Houding. Cyrus could never gain a soul sword by himself. He's too much of a meathead, but with the prince as his soul sword, he can become a Houding and preserve the Redguards through Tiber Septim's empire. I would show you the ending of this game, but I can't. See, all along I have hidden an important piece of information from all of you. This game is unplayable. Literally, I can't play it. It is a miracle that we made it this far. Here the game broke completely and it wouldn't allow me to finish it. So instead, I'm gonna give you a speedrun of the ending. Governor dies, Dark Elf dies, Cyrus wins, Izara becomes the new Queen of Hammerfell, and Tiber Septim has to negotiate a treaty that benefits the Redguards and gives them more autonomy. But fundamentally, they are still part of his empire. The end, or at least, it wasn't supposed to be. They were planning to make 2 other games based on Cyrus's escapades depending on this game's success, which, given that this game and Battlespire proved to be a financial catastrophe for Bethesda, were never made. So what happened to Cyrus after the end of Redguard? We will get to that, but before that, we will have to talk about Yokuda properly. There's a reason why so far I've dodged the topic of Yokuda for as long as I did throughout this video, and the reason is, it's not an easy topic. So picking up from the point where the Yokudans killed all the Sinistral elves, and one thing that I didn't mention is the incredible size of Yokuda proper, as it was set out to be 4 times greater than the Empire of Cyrodiil. Such a continent was always subdivided into lesser kingdoms that were, more often than not, at war with each other. Okay, before I give a timeline to what I think happened to this place.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
You love him, you wanna see him in Test 6, but you don't know him. See, initially, sword singing was just a martial philosophy on the mastery of swords. In reality, sword singers are less warriors and more mage warrior paladin types. They practice anything from poetry, distraction, but all done under a specific code and meditation. And at the center of all that was their swords. Their curved swords. Note, the Shenhai is not a sword imbued with magic, or an advanced spell, or even a sword for that matter. The final goal of these sword singers was to gain supreme mastery and develop their own Shenhai, or as many of you might know it, Spirit Sword. What is happening here is that the Master Sword Singers can focus their souls so much that they can turn them into swords, and Sword Singers with that ability earn the title Ansei, Sword Saint. Thus the sword is the wielder's soul, and the Sword Singers with this ability earn the title Ansei, Sword Saint. Which brings us back to the history of Yokuda. So you have a bunch of warring kingdoms, and in said warring kingdoms, there is a bunch of people that can turn their souls into swords, and are able to kill entire armies, or even worse. However, given how high the bar is to become an Ansei, they are mostly harmless, and I use that term mostly because not all of them go through the same process of becoming an Ansei. Some are just born lucky, and others just have their spirit sword spawn in times of distress. What can I say? Some people are just born as anime protagonists. In this climate, a military ruler called Mansell Sensit succeeded in uniting a large part of the continent, but he was assassinated in the year 617 of the First Era. His successor, Randik Thorn, managed to unite the entirety of the continent, but he understood that people's obsessions with swords is probably what is causing the wars to begin with. And you know what? I get it. If I spent decades mastering a sword, I would want to use it at some point too. So he created a law that banned the use of sword to anyone who isn't a sword singer or undergoes the way of the sword, and he persecuted all other sword owners in what would come to be referred to as Thorn's Sword Hunt. And it almost worked, but there was always some pushback to these laws. Pushback which would come to a boil after his death in the year 737 of the First Era, which would lead to another civil war. In the aftermath of Thorn's decree and death, another emperor, Hira, rose to power, and he had the polar opposite opinion as his predecessor. He wanted to kill all soul singers and forever ban soul singing. It is never exactly stated why he wanted to wipe them out. Maybe he just hated Thorn's laws, maybe he wanted someone to blame for the civil wars, or the theory that I'm buying more than anything else, he was afraid of the power of the Ansei, and his fears were 100% justified. So in the war that ensued, known as the War of the Singers, Hira's forces fought a way smaller army led by Fredar Hunting and other sword singers, and after a long fight, the sword singers won. It is stated that Fredar didn't want to fight initially. In fact, it was his son that convinced him to resist, and he also took no pride in his victory, during which they killed so many Yokudan soldiers that they were no longer welcomed in Yokuda. So right after the battle, they left Yokuda for Tamriel, where they landed in Valenfell, a land which they would later conquer and rename Hammerfell. Something I want to note is that most of these events, if not all of them, the persecution, the war, leaving Yokuda, happened in the year 780 of the First Era, but they themselves would not reach Tamriel until the year 808. But 12 years after their departure from Yokuda, the continent sank in the year 792. It is almost unanimously agreed that the Ansei were the ones to sink Yokuda, but the details are always kind of foggy. How is it universally agreed, you may ask? And I am so glad that you asked. Let me tell you about my favorite trial in the Elder Scrolls Online, Hell Ra Citadel. In this trial, you and a group of 11 other majestic people who definitely came here consensually venture into a long-sealed fortress called Hell Ra Citadel, where you have to free the warrior constellation from the serpent's corruption. In his madness, the warrior began rising from the dead great ancient warriors of the past, one of whom is the guardian of this place, who has his own Shanghai, which looks very cool and very intimidating, and the warrior constellation has this to say when he wakes him up.
The first rank Ansei sank Yokuda. This warrior Shahai is beyond first rank.
The following quotes he says throughout the battle paint the idea that they can destroy mountains with their swords.
The mountain falls. Hammer blades fall. The mountain charges.
So one of the theory goes that a group of Ansei that did not leave the continent with Frandar was defeated in battle in the year 792, and to get their revenge, they used a forbidden stone magic which sank the continent, except for some smaller islands. However, I have some problems with this theory. First, if they have the power to blow up the continent, why not use that power during the battle and just win on the spot? Or better yet, as the army of Yokudans comes closer to them, say stop or I will blow up the continent and blow up a mountain to get the point across. I have an alternative to the stone magic theory, courtesy of the Elder Scrolls Foundation of cool but non-canonical theories. Michael Kirkbride. Oh, did you really think that we were gonna go a single video without mentioning MK? Before I talk about the end of Yokuda and the end of Cyrus though, I want to talk about a piece of document which shows a different way about how the story of Yokuda began. It is a prominent theory, and one that I personally subscribe to, that Yokuda is from an entirely different Kalpa. A while back, the Lawmaster for ESO released a bunch of documents basically world building a bunch of areas of the game. One of them was called The Hunger of Sep. I quote directly from it, but some there were among the people who decided that a little more of what they needed was not as much as they did want, and in their avarice they fell away from proper reverence and were taken, yeah, body and soul, with the Hunger of Sep. And this was an ill thing, for the Hunger of Sep can never be sated. Then evil came to Yokuda, and Red War, and forbidden rites were practiced, and fell things were summoned that should have never been called forth. It was a time of ending. Sadakal arose from the starry deeps, and Yokuda was pulled down beneath the waves. But after every end time comes a new time, and it was even so in this case. There, we were given a chance once again to worship the gods in proper reverence. There are two ways to interpret this document. One, it refers to the sinking of Yokuda which we just discussed, or two, it refers to a previous Yokuda from a different world. The reason why I'm closing more on the second theory is the wording of this excerpt. And also, it sounds cooler. It says, Sadakal arose from the starry deeps, and Yokuda was pulled down beneath the waves. If it were talking about just the end of Yokuda, why I mentioned Sadakal, the cycle ender, and the document is called The Hunger of Seb, and Seb hungered to escape the cycle and find a different walkabout. I also want to mention that in many documents about Yokuda, it is sometimes hinted that there was another reason for the migration to Tamriel. In Mysterious Akavir, it is stated that Akavir means Dragonland, Tamriel means Dawn's Beauty. Altmora means Elderwood. Only the Redguards know what Yokuda ever meant. And the Redguards destroyed Yokuda so they could make their journey. All men and mer know Tamriel as the nexus of creation, where the last war will happen, where the gods unmade Lorkhan and left their adamantine tower of secrets. To me, it seems like Yokudan's destruction was part of perhaps a greater walkabout. Anyway I try to interpret these statements, it always falls down to speculation. I'm just here to provide the sources. As a final note before we talk about Lord Vivek's sword meeting with Cyrus the Restless, in most comment threads I found about this topic, and in some pages as well, it is a popular theory that Yokudans are from a different Kalpa, but they only came here after the Sinistral Elves destroyed their previous world, which led them to come to this one, which then made the Sinistral Elves chase them here and continue their conflict in this world. I have a policy on this channel which goes something like this: don't say stuff without knowing the source, and I haven't been able to find a single original source for this, so if anyone knows where this theory comes from, please tell me in the comments.
Consistent. It's a better way to make any dish taste absolutely delicious.
Time for Lord Vivek's sword meeting with Cyrus the Restless. This was published on the year 2006 by Michael Kirkbride on the official Bethesda forums. First it states that, mind you, this story isn't necessarily true, for not all of Cyrus the Restless is true in its entire, and yet that has never really mattered. Indeed, you'll come to see that sometimes stories that aren't necessarily true can still sometimes win the day. Then it establishes that this story takes place after the events of Redguard. Apparently, Srathra, the Khajiit from the beginning, got his hands on a treasure map that reveals the location of a hidden temple in an island of what's left of Yokuda. It says that Cyrus was joined by an entire crew, and one of his crew members is Koyol, the Yokudan we met in the game. They eventually make it into the temple, where they begin a search for a treasure called the Glass Opal of the Nogru. But something scared them off, and they ran back to their ship, where they were followed by Vivek. Stay back, Danmer, Cyrus said, eyeing his head. I can't have you burning this boat. You don't know me, Cyrus said, so I'll tell you once. And then Vivek spoke. He said to Cyrus, "Oh, I know you, Raga. I know that you forced an armistice with the Cyrodiil, which I have done, though by different design. I know also that even after speaking well and rendering your people free again, you remained a thief at heart in the days after, which I have also done, and still do, again in my own way." And here, the god of the East smiled a bit too lovingly. And let it be said here that you have no idea how much I absolutely adore thieves. Cyrus, for his part, was circling around Vivek. His men watched from the deck of the ship. Some had brought bows and arrows, but Koyo moved them away with a hand. Vivek then tells him that he knows how Cyrus will die, which Cyrus completely ignores. But Vivek then hits him with this. "Death, despite kinship, has never been our way," he said. "I know too how it feels to murder the husband of my sister." And at this, Cyrus finally snaps and attacks Vivek, and he gets bodied in an instant. Vivek then takes the jewel they were after and vanishes. In the next scene, Cyrus is in a surgeon's hold recovering from his fight, when Koyol and a yoke welder approach him, and the yoke welder begins to speak to him, and Koyo translates. The young Ansu drops his stance. "He cannot be beaten," he told Cyrus. "We know every sword move created in history, and none of them will avail you, even if you learn them from our memories in stone, which we will be obliged to lend you, if you asked. You killed the White King in Hammerfell, after all." "What?" Cyrus said. "The Emperor? I didn't kill him." "Of course you did. You were the Hunding." "No, I didn't. And no, I wasn't." The young Ansu refused to listen. Behind his stone feather mask, he smiled in admiration. "You disarmed him even, and would not kill him until he showed another knife. That is Rakara honor. We do not fight the unprotected. Our stories have come." "That wasn't the Emperor," Cyrus said. "That was just..." "Of course it was. That is why the Hammerfell stands. You were the Hunding. In any case, Ansu Gorlet cannot be beaten. He was gifted by the barons of move like this, who record sword moves from the future as well. Alright, Cyrus sighed. Please remove yourselves from my ship. Will you take the memories in stone at least? Why? Cyrus said. He tried to keep his temper. You've already said that they're useless against him. The elder lifted a hand. The Houdin could... Look, the Houdin could read the stones and show you what is true. That no move exists that will get past the Ansu gauntlet. The elder looked through the floor of the hold. At least not now, he said. The Houdin would show you that he will not manifest in you in this fight. Good, Cyrus said. He would get in my way. And with that, he lay back down. The elder looked up from the floor and set his head to the side. Surahun, he said. We are the Ansu, the greatest warriors that live in men. Our swords send the left-handers into the ocean, whose empire was 4 times the size of the White King's. When we fight, our swords can kill the laws of nature itself. Yokuda is as you see it, because our Hirading swords can cut the atomos, the uncuttable, and we did. We are the Ansu, and we tell you now that you cannot beat the Ansu gauntlet. Then they talk some more, and Cyrus basically says, no, but really, I'm gonna go fight him again, and then he goes to fight him again. While he was sleeping though, he did some meditating with the memory stones, which are basically stones that can store memory. He immediately becomes fluent in Yokudan, which he wasn't before, and he wears armor before the fight. Then something happens, and then he finds Vivek again. Vivek begins by saying that he likes him, a bit too much maybe, and then he also admits that he's part of the reason why Cyrus is now stronger, and then he admits that he wanted this. He wanted to see Cyrus become stronger. In part, he was guiding him from the beginning. Cyrus then begins displaying that he's able to cast the Pancrado sword, the sword technique that can shatter atoms. Test me. No, Vivek said. For I would like to imagine that you could. It would mean that I would bleed prior to the cut itself, bypassing all healing. More so, and this is what pleases me utmost, it would mean that I have indeed helped you. Cyrus had his moment then, when he had maneuvered the duel from the start. Pride was the Ansu gauntlet's weakness. My lord, Cyrus said, forgive me for my little grace, but I deny your help again. Indeed, I turn my back to it, and betray it, and malign it. That should be familiar to you. Vivek paused. It is, he said. As should this, Cyrus said, moving to the Pancrado sword. Vivek paused longer, and then he laughed aloud. You would not. I say again. Test me. You would destroy the home of your ancestors even more, and in the fashion that they had done, which is now forbidden in your hands, all for an opal which you could never thereafter spend. You would be finished, Cyrus said, and I would be rid of the one who shamed me. So why wouldn't I? You shouldn't have sent your saints to me. I am not much like them at all. Cut the atomos, and you die too. What? The barons of move like this didn't teach you the counter move to this? Cyrus said. Oh wait. They wouldn't have. The Pancrado sword is stricken from the record. Vivek laughed. He was delighted. He said, the things they say about your true Redguard, whether you wish to believe it or not. Vivek bowed his head. I make way, he said. I'll drop my sword. And the Demon King did, though it hovered a few inches from the ground. Vivek continued, and thus we come to a stalemate. For I am unarmed and you cannot. No, Cyrus said, moving his sword to Vivek's throat. You overestimated my Redguard honor, boy. Different rules apply for gods and demons and mad shapers. You, Ansu Gauntlet, you're all three. I should kiss you, Vivek smiled. The Jew will do better, Cyrus said. Thank you very much. Summon it, send it to the ship, and we're done. This is what you answer for your shame, Vivek said. You're easily bought. And then he gives him the jewel. Cyrus turned to go, but Vivek stopped him, saying, and I had so wanted to see the Pancrado sword. What stopped you? Old advice, Cyrus said, and he pointed his saber to Vivek. And you're wearing it, sure enough. At the apex of the temple's upper reaches, Cyrus turned back, calling to Vivek, well met, Tribune, and farewell. And that's how the story goes. With a duel that wasn't a duel, and with a story that wasn't true. Cyrus, you see, never knew how to actually use the Pancrado sword, only how to hold it at threat. After all, its use was forbidden, and thus held in no stone at all after the fall of old Yokuda. He then gets the opal and heads back to the ship, and the story ends with him admitting that he did in fact cheat. I really like the idea of the Pancrado sword, for one simple reason. It sounds cool, and I have a single question to ask. With all the remakes and remasters being made, why isn't this game one of them? I can see potential here. Get to it, Todd. If the next Elder Scrolls title does take place in Hammerfell, then I assume that everything said here will be expanded upon, and if not, they will probably be completely retconned. So take this video as a detailed explanation of everything we already know. Next video is gonna be on ESO, it's gonna be another biggie, I'm gonna go work on it. Thank you all so much for watching, bye bye.
Born to be blessed.